What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Ragnarok, coming from Server 200. And today we're going to do a little something different, right? We're going to look at a case study specifically of a server that I've looked at before. And really, I'm going to give you the premise of, from a server standpoint, why I'm going over this, why this is important, and why you should probably pay attention to this. So there's two kind of ideas out there, right? When you're looking at server strength, and I'm just going to give you an idea of what I'm speaking about versus consolidation or spreading out your power. What the heck am I even talking about, right? So what I'm specifically talking about here is when we look at alliances, right? So when you look at alliance powers, are you consolidating to one alliance, or are you spreading out that power throughout your server? Why is this important? Why should we pay attention to this? And also, when we look at power, some of you guys know, if you have somebody that have really full trill grounds, that can be very, very misleading. So it's really important to look at, THP and see that you have some folks that are typically not in that number 1 or in that number 2, and they're coming up on that number 3, in the top 20, top 30. Why is that important and why you should pay attention to that? That's what we're going to go over. And then we're going to go over specifically of a server that I kind of inadvertently didn't mean to call out, and I have the receipts, and I definitely will go over that as well. So let's get into it. When is it a good idea to actually consolidate power? And why would you consolidate power? So for this, let's take a look at server 20. HBO specifically is an alliance that has been consolidating power for a while. And if I had to guess, the number one reason is primarily they probably just don't have enough bodies. That is a good reason to consolidate power. So when you look at this alliance, this server, if you will, look at everyone in the top 20. Do you see anybody that's outside of HBO? No. Even in the top 30, do you see anyone? Nope. Still not. Okay, finally at 33, we have someone coming out. And if I had to guess, and we've fought HBO before in DS, the main reason is primarily because of overall server strength. So, when you consolidate power, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but when to do it, you have to do it appropriately, right? So the number one reason I think you should actually consolidate power is doing certain activities in the season battles, right? You're going to have an extremely strong alliance. So consolidating power, you're going to have a great alliance. You're going to probably be extremely competitive. Number 2, doing things like Desert Storm, DS, you're going to be very, very competitive. Like I said, we fought HBO before. They just have a massive amount of depth. And doing things like Canyon Storm, right? These other events. So this is a good idea when to actually consolidate power. Let's look at reasons why, spreading out power is actually a good idea. Spreading out power is always a great idea if you can do it. And one of the best servers to do that is 263. Now these guys, on paper look like they're, nothing amazing, but when you actually look at their total hero power, they're fantastic. You have these folks that are in these different servers, so different alliances. So you have YXI, you have OMY, and you have 3MJ. All these guys are competing in the Diamond League. So again, you're going to have very high VS. You're going to have also during things like SVS, they're going to be extremely competitive, putting these folks together on a certain cannon or a certain area. And really, really important also in seasons like season 5, when you need someone, resetting your timers and also just protecting your back. You're going to have that server strength, which is fantastic, which you see in a server like 263. Now let's look at a case study a little further about a server that I actually inadvertently called out, and I'll show you guys here shortly. Something I didn't really mean to do, and I'm eating my words for it. Let's get into it. Well, okay, mostly an American server as well, headlined by F4FO. These guys are good. Typically, I would say, because I just don't know them, I think they're more of a one alliance server with most of their power there consolidated. But I'd be lying to say that, right? 25 billion is not a small number whatsoever. No. So that video, guys, was about server 282. I'm eating my words, and massive shout out to 282 on taking that challenge, and running with it. Not that it probably anything I said really affected them. I actually got some folks from them, teasing me a little bit and having fun, saying, "Hey, we're not on a One Alliance server." And you know what? You're totally right. I4I is awesome, and they've become even more awesome through this transfer process. And let's actually look at that on why this is actually extremely helpful and how it's really helped them. So right off the get-go, I talked about in the previous little segment of that video is, FAF here, having most of their power, but I4I brought some really awesome power, as you see here. They brought some folks in from 245 SOD or SOD. So what they've actually been able to do is almost every other folk is, it's staggered here in power. That's given them a really 1-2 good punch. And what that meant for is, we talked about SVS and whatnot, right? Things like this. And we were in their bracket and were able to see that firsthand. We didn't actually get to fight them, but they ended up getting third place, which is really, really good in our bracket. They went against 2 VIP 18s and ended up winning. So massive shout out to 282. And what they, their entire approach from the transfer, even just going forward, and this building all that depth, as you can see, is only going to help. I imagine they're going to even try to build a third alliance off of this. So really cool to see, but ultimately, this is the difference between actually consolidating power and doing something like spreading out the power, right? So, the highlights of this is, spreading out that power. If you can do it, if you have enough folks, it's a really, really good idea. Ultimately, it's going to actually lead to a lot of great morale on the server, right? So not one alliance is only going to get all the transfer seats, kind of spread some stuff out, keeps people really active and engaged. And then ultimately, when you don't have all that activity, or your server just doesn't have that many people, that might be a good idea to actually consolidate. There you guys have it. This is my breakdown of consolidating versus spreading it out. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to smack those likes, or elbow those likes, or even kick a like if you guys enjoyed this content. And we'll see you guys back on the battlefield. This is Ragnarok, over and out, and let's go.